cameras were already rolling when Barack Obama walked into the glowing international studio. A thunderstorm rumbled faintly outside the Geneva skyline, but inside, silence. Lights bathed the set in blues and whites. Dozens of world leaders sat quietly, their expressions fixed. This was no ordinary summit. It had been labeled a global future dialogue, meant to strengthen Western African partnerships. Obama was only expected to give a polite address, but something felt off. Ibrahim Traoré sat toward the back, arms folded, eyes scanning the room. He wasn't here for pleasantries, he came to listen. He had a quiet understanding that something was brewing beneath the polished words. Obama stepped up to the podium, adjusted his tie, and glanced down briefly at a small leather notebook. He looked up, and then, to everyone's shock, he went off script. "What I'm about to say," he began calmly, "was never in the speech they approved, but I can't stay silent anymore." Every camera zoomed in. Gasps, murmurs. Obama locked eyes with the global audience. "For decades," he said, voice steady, "African leaders have been manipulated, lied to, used." The room froze, and just like that, the world changed. The moderators fumbled for their earpieces. Someone at the back gestured wildly to cut the feed, but it was too late. Millions were already watching, phones recording, streams exploding. Obama didn't blink. "Let's talk facts," he said. "From the CFA franc system in West Africa to secret bilateral deals signed under aid, the West has never been honest with Africa. And we've used your leaders, some knowingly, others blindly." Then came the shocker. He began listing names. Jacques Foccart, Nicolas Sarkozy. Even Joe Biden, yes, my friend, was briefed on trade manipulation practices under AGOA. He paused. "I was too." The studio gasped. Obama admitted complicity. "My silence made me part of the problem," he said. Ibrahim Traoré leaned forward. Then Obama looked straight into the camera. "To African youth watching this, you were never crazy. The loans, the aid, the corruption pipelines, they were designed to keep you poor. And when someone stands up, like Traoré, they're labeled a threat." Every word hit like thunder. Viewers started crying. Phones lit up with messages from Dakar, Kinshasa, Johannesburg. Hashtags exploded. Traoré didn't smile. He just looked down, clenched his fist, and whispered, "They finally know." And then Obama said something no one saw coming. "The real betrayal is still coming." A producer whispered frantically, "We need to cut him off." But Obama held up a small black flash drive and said calmly, "Before they shut me down, let me show you this." He inserted it into the studio's live system. The screen behind him flickered. Then a grainy video began playing. A 2012 recording. Hidden camera. A secret meeting at the IMF in Washington. Western officials, calm and casual, discussing how to pressure African nations into selling mineral rights in exchange for debt forgiveness that was never going to come. One white-haired man laughed. "Give them grants, make them sign. Then tell the media they're unstable if they resist. Simple." The studio went deathly quiet. Some foreign dignitaries walked out. Others stayed frozen. Ibrahim Traoré closed his eyes. This was the proof he never had. And it came not from an African president, but from Obama himself. One reporter began to cry on air. Twitter melted. Obama then looked around the room and said, "This isn't about left or right. This is about justice, about truth, and I'm not finished." That was when a security team entered the studio, and Traoré suddenly stood up. The studio had never been so silent. Obama leaned forward at the podium. His voice didn't rise. It deepened, steady as steel. "I'll say it plainly. In 1993, President Thomas Sankara of Burkina Faso was assassinated shortly after refusing IMF deals. Laurent Gbagbo of Côte d'Ivoire, betrayed after rejecting Western military bases. Libya, We all know what happened to Gaddafi. Gasps echoed. A reporter dropped her pen. The screens behind Obama glowed with headlines and faces. Real, historic, undeniable. And just last year, he continued, a deal was signed by France with 3 African countries, without the knowledge of their own citizens. A chill swept through the room. But why now? One bold journalist asked. Obama's gaze pierced her. Because silence is no longer neutral, it's complicity. The tension grew unbearable. In homes across Africa, families leaned in toward their TVs. WhatsApp groups exploded. Clips went viral. African youth in Accra, Kigali, and Bamako began to march. TikTok overflowed with tears, fists raised, and Ask Africa Speaks. But the room hadn't even heard the worst yet, not even close. Just when the studio seemed like it couldn't take more tension, the lights shifted. A soft chime played. A new guest had joined the summit. The host's voice cracked. Please welcome the transitional president of Burkina Faso, Captain Ibrahim Traoré. The room buzzed again. He walked in calmly, dressed in traditional attire with subtle military trimming, strong, centered, unshaken. Obama nodded respectfully. Traoré returned the gesture. Then he spoke, not loudly, but every word felt carved in stone. When Thomas Sankara warned us, we laughed. When the CFA franc kept us poor, we stayed silent. But the youth no longer sleep, and I stand with them. A journalist interrupted. But Captain, aren't you afraid of retaliation? He smiled just slightly. I am more afraid of history forgetting we said nothing. The audience burst into applause, but not everyone was clapping. In a shadowed corner of the studio, 2 European diplomats exchanged worried glances. Cameras caught it, viewers screenshot it, and Twitter exploded with questions. Suddenly, Africa wasn't begging to be saved. It was rising, speaking, refusing, and the broadcast wasn't over. Obama still had one final revelation. As the applause faded, Obama adjusted his earpiece. Then, he dropped the bomb. In early 2023, he said, the French government made a secret offer to 2 West African presidents. Continued military protection, in exchange for long-term mineral control, lithium, uranium, gold. The papers are right here. He held them up. Real signed documents. The cameras zoomed in. The air cracked with tension. No one was supposed to see these, he added. But people inside your system, Africans who still believe, risked everything to leak this. One reporter whispered, Is this real? Yes, Traoré said, his voice steady. And that's why Burkina Faso expelled French troops. We will never again allow our land to be used like a coin. Mothers watching in Senegal began to cry. Students in Kenya shared the clip to their stories. TikTok flooded with "Wounds Africa not for sale." Obama paused, then added, "The world is watching, but more importantly, Africa is finally watching itself." One tear rolled down a young journalist's cheek. She wasn't alone. And yet, Obama hadn't said the final name. Not yet. The world would soon hear it, and everything would change. As reactions poured in from presidents, pundits, and social media influencers, Obama paused the summit with a personal story. "I want to tell you about Isa," he said, pulling a small photo from his jacket. She was 10, lived in a small village in Niger. Her school was shut down when foreign mining trucks arrived. Her father, a farmer, died when the river turned toxic from uranium waste. The screen behind him changed. Real footage of dusty villages, barefoot children playing near glowing yellow rocks, unaware of the danger. She died last year from liver failure. Her mother couldn't afford the hospital trip. The studio sat frozen. Meanwhile, Obama added, the French company extracting that uranium made $3.4 billion that same year, and paid the village nothing. Gasps. One African reporter whispered, "Mon Dieu." Traoré clenched his jaw. "This isn't politics anymore," Obama said. "It's about children dying while billionaires build yachts." Across Africa, people began crying. Real crying. Videos flooded in, teachers, nurses, young activists with shaking voices. And yet, even now, the worst part hadn't come. Because next, Obama would reveal who allowed it to happen. The screen flickered again. Obama's face darkened. He spoke slowly now, choosing every word with weight. 2 African presidents, still in office, signed away their nation's resources in exchange for private wealth and foreign protection. He pressed a button. A massive contract appeared behind him with redacted sections, except for 2 names. Gasps. Loud, audible gasps. These documents were verified. These leaders gave foreign powers control over lithium and cobalt, the blood of the future tech industry, while their own people starved. Reporters started shouting. Some demanded names. Obama didn't flinch. I will not name them now, but the people already know. Outside the studio, Twitter erupted. African journalists posted cryptic messages. Crowds gathered near presidential residences. But the camera cut to Traoré. He didn't look shocked. He looked ready. I know these names, he said quietly, and I know what must be done. One journalist asked, Are you calling for revolution? Traoré looked at her. No, I'm calling for awakening. That word echoed. In Lagos, in Nairobi, and Ouagadougou, protests broke out overnight. Not of violence, of pain, of tears, of long-buried betrayal. Still, the summit continued, and Obama wasn't finished yet. During the summit's short break, cameras caught something strange. Obama stepped aside, speaking quietly into an earpiece. His face tightened. Moments later, he returned, but this time, he wasn't calm. I've just received a call from a U.S. official, he said. They asked me to end this summit, said it was provoking instability. Murmurs. Then Obama said something that would break the internet. I told them, no. Africa is not your chessboard anymore. The crowd exploded. Traoré stood beside him now. Let them watch, Traoré said. Let the world see who still believes in truth. The hosts were stunned. This wasn't just a summit anymore. It was becoming a movement. Online, hashtags like Africa Eyes Awake and We Stand with Obama surged. People wept in YouTube comments. Some wrote from villages, others from diasporas. And just when viewers thought things couldn't go further, Obama leaned in. There's one more truth I haven't revealed, one more secret. It involves someone I trusted. He paused. Someone whose betrayal changed everything. The room froze. After the call from Washington, Obama took a deep breath. The lights in the studio dimmed just slightly. Cameras zoomed in as he pulled out something unexpected, a worn-out leather journal. This belonged to someone I met in 2009, he said quietly. An African leader, young, visionary, but scared. He opened it carefully, pages crackling like old paper. He wrote this entry the day before he died. It reads, They want me to sign. They say if I don't, my people will starve. But if I do, I'm handing them over like sheep. God help me. I fear I won't live to see morning. The screen showed the name, Thomas Sankara. A gasp swept through the studio. A young reporter covered her mouth. Someone in the back wept softly. Obama looked up. You want to know what betrayal looks like? It's when a visionary writes in fear while smiling in public. He paused. His killer wasn't just Burkinabe, he had Western approval. And I know it now. I saw the classified cables. People across the world sat stunned. And in the corner of the studio, Ibrahim Traoré's eyes gleamed with something deeper than anger. A vow. The moment hung heavy. Obama handed the journal to a staffer. Then he turned to Captain Ibrahim Traoré. I don't know what you carry inside, Obama said gently. But I know you're walking the same line Sankara once walked, and the world is watching again. For the first time, Traoré didn't speak. Instead, he reached into his own coat and pulled out a photo, aged and folded. It was a black and white picture of a young Thomas Sankara holding a child. "My father took this," Traoré said, his voice thick. "That child is my uncle. He never knew what the photo would mean one day, but I carry it everywhere." A single tear escaped him, quiet, unnoticed by some, but not by the millions watching. "I am not Sankara," he added, "but I will not betray his dream." The room stood still. Outside, African youth, many wearing red berets, gathered silently in town squares, holding candles, phones in the air, crying together. YouTube comment sections exploded. "Why am I crying and I'm not even African?" This isn't just a story. It's truth. But Obama had one more page to turn, and it would break the world open. Obama looked directly at the camera now. 2 years ago, he said, a high-level U.S. official, whom I won't name, proposed a secret plan to me after I left office. He held up a red folder stamped confidential. They wanted my help convincing African leaders to agree to a new multi-country trade and defense deal. Sounds good, right? The audience nodded. "But here's the fine print," Obama continued. "Burkina Faso would give up 70% of its rare earth mineral profits to foreign corporations for the next 25 years. In exchange, empty promises of stability." Gasps. Even some Western journalists looked away. I refused, and they weren't happy. He tapped the folder again. Ibrahim Traoré was on their list. They believed he could be pressured, bought, intimidated. The camera turned to Traoré. He stood still, unwavering. "I never took their call," he said. "Not once. Not ever." Silence, then applause, raw, honest, thunderous. One African elder in the audience whispered, This is the leader we've waited for." But the clock was ticking. And Obama's final truth, it was still under lock and key, waiting to break every heart in the room. Just as the applause began to fade, Obama said something unexpected. "There's one last video I need you to see." The screen behind him lit up, grainy but real. A small child, barefoot, walked beside a long convoy of military trucks on a dusty African road. She held something in her hand, a torn plastic bottle filled with muddy water. "This was filmed last year in a village near a foreign-operated gold mine in West Africa," Obama said. "Those trucks were French." The child stopped, looked straight into the camera, then waved, smiled. "She died 3 weeks later from cholera," Obama whispered. No one in the studio breathed. No clean water, no clinic, yet gold worth $200 million passed her home every month. A woman in the studio began sobbing. Obama's voice trembled now. "We call this foreign investment, but this is theft with permission." Across Africa, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube flooded with reposts of the clip. The girl's name was revealed. Fatouma Diallo. Her story became a symbol and a scar. And Obama wasn't done, because now he was about to name the man who stood by and let it happen. The cameras rolled. Millions were watching now. And Obama looked tired, not physically, but soul deep. "Back when I was president," he began, "there was one African leader who came to me often. He sat in meetings, smiled for cameras, made big speeches about Africa's future." He paused. But behind the scenes, he signed 3 separate deals that gave Western oil companies full rights to the Niger Delta for 40 years. Murmurs grew. And he did it while receiving scholarships for his children and silent donations to his party. He pressed a button. A name appeared on the screen. Confidential document. Dated 2013. The name, Goodluck Jonathan. Gasps. Some reporters stared in disbelief. Others whispered, Many already knew, but no one had dared speak it. Obama sighed. I liked him, trusted him, but trust without accountability is how we got here. At that moment, Ibrahim Traoré stood up. Africa must no longer protect the powerful. We must protect the people. The audience erupted. Online, Nigerians began trending, "Not in our name." Others demanded investigations. But before Obama sat down, he dropped one more line. There's someone else, bigger, still in power, and I'll name them now. Just as Obama opened the final folder, the studio lights suddenly cut. The screens blinked black. Microphones fizzled. Panic rippled through the crowd. Producers ran across the stage. We've lost the feed. But then, the emergency lights glowed red. Backup cameras kicked in, and Obama, still at the podium, spoke again. I knew they'd try to stop this, but they're too late. He held up the last document. This involves not just corruption, but death. The suppression of a famine alert in exchange for oil rights. One man gave the green light to delay food distribution across the Sahel, to keep foreign investors calm. The files shook in his hand. And that man is still president. Gasps. Reporters screamed, "Who?" But before he could answer, Captain Ibrahim Traoré stepped forward, calm, commanding. There's a line we will not cross, but they already crossed it. Africa will rise not in anger, but in truth. The crowd chanted his name, and the screen behind them lit up again, with the face of the current betrayer. The screen came back to life. A face appeared. Clear. Cold. It was a sitting African president. A man many had admired. A man still giving speeches about democracy and progress. The crowd in the studio gasped. Some journalists cried out in shock. One collapsed in her chair. Obama looked down. I begged him, he said. I warned him in 2021 that the deal he signed would cost lives, that it would block life-saving grain shipments to Sahel countries. But he signed it anyway, for $80 million wired to an offshore account. A reporter whispered, "That's genocide." Obama nodded solemnly. But Africa forgave him, too quickly. Then Ibrahim Traoré stepped forward. We don't want revenge, he said. We want truth and justice. So no child dies while their leader buys a new mansion in France. The room went silent. Across the continent, rage turned into mourning. Families cried. Children who had lost parents to famine wept at the screen. And for the first time in decades, a full list of names, documents, dates was published live. Africa wasn't just watching. Africa was awakening. And the world. It was shaking. In the hours that followed, something unimaginable happened. African youth began to gather, not to burn, not to riot, but to grieve. In Lagos, over 200,000 young people lit candles. In Bamako, women marched with photos of dead children lost to hunger and neglect. In Nairobi, schoolchildren sang Sankara's speeches like lullabies. The studio was overwhelmed with messages from elders, from victims, from whistleblowers, from the diaspora, from soldiers who said, "We didn't know, but we do now." Obama sat quietly, tears in his eyes. And then Captain Ibrahim Traoré did something no one expected. He walked to the center of the stage and knelt. "I kneel not in weakness," he said, "but in honor of every African soul we forgot while we shook foreign hands." One by one, others in the studio knelt. Journalists, diplomats, elders, Obama himself. It wasn't a summit anymore. It had become a funeral for the forgotten, and a birth for the awakened. And still, Obama had one final message. A message not for presidents, but for you, watching. The lights dimmed. Obama stood one last time, but now, He didn't speak like a former president. He spoke like a father, a son, a man with something heavy in his heart. "I once believed that diplomacy would save Africa," he said, "but I was wrong." He looked directly into the camera. "It won't be saved by signatures or by summits. It will be saved by you, the youth, the dreamers, the ones with nothing left to lose." The screen behind him lit up with the faces of African children, real ones, smiling, some gone, some still holding on. "I betrayed some of you with my silence," Obama whispered, "but I will not stay silent again, and neither should you." He turned to Ibrahim Traoré and saluted. "To every African leader who chooses justice over comfort, we see you. We need you." The music rose. Viewers sobbed. YouTube comment sections overflowed with heartbreak, fire, and hope. And then, to you, the viewer, the final words appeared on screen. "If this story broke your heart, let it build your voice. Like, comment, and subscribe now, so the world knows you stand with truth. Type, 'Africa will rise' in the comments, and let the leaders hear us."